Our story starts in a dimly lit cave, crawling with the monsters that we love to hate. Right now, they are celebrating the death of their chief. With the death of the leader comes the opportunity to take his weapon and other possessions. The big goblin lying on the floor must be the chief, and the little ones trying to loot his body are the mindless bastards. They can't even figure out who will take the wooden club. Two little goblins settled their argument over who gets to be the next chief in the only way they could. By fighting it out, whoever survives is in the right. If you see goblins fighting, you better close your eyes because they are very brutal. They would scratch, bite, and use every dirty trick in the book while cursing at each other. As for the rest of the goblin lair, they naturally gravitate to the violence. They would form a circle and cheer for the combatants to finish each other off. Among the audience, one goblin remembered that the chief had left some untouched prey deeper in the cave. Now that no one technically owns the prey, they can go and take it for themselves. There is one problem with that plan, though. There is a guy guarding the prey quite fiercely. That guy they are talking about is about to return to the prey's spot and stand guard. This dude they were talking about was also a goblin, but he's not like the other goblins. As he walks to the prey, the rest of the goblin lair stares at him with revulsion and hatred. He's been widely known as the guardian of the prey, a disgusting creature that covers his body up like a human. Some of the goblins think that he's just keeping the prey for himself, so they all thought of the same thing. They just have to follow the guard until they reach the prey. But some of the more cautious goblins wanted to wait a bit longer, as some guys had already gone to scour the cave to find the prey right after the chief died. Those are tough goblins too. Once the fighting starts, the smarter and more cautious ones can swoop in. Of course, the outcast goblin heard everything that these bastards were saying and whispering behind his back. Then he heard screaming and the desperate call for help from a woman coming from deep within the cave. It prompted the outcast to run as fast as he could. As he laid eyes upon the entrance of the chief's room, the pleading for help grew louder and louder. The outcast ran faster than he had ever run before and slid into the dark room. The prey was fighting for her life and dignity as goblins held her down to the ground. She doesn't want to give birth to goblin children. The bastard goblins and the prey noticed the arrival of the outcast at the same time. She started crying and begging for help even more desperately. As the hot breaths and grubby hands of the goblins touched her body, the outcast appealed to the goon goblins to let her go, to no avail. In this room, skeletal remains of all kinds of creatures have been scattered all over. The biggest goblin in the room stood up to the freak outcast, insisting that the prey was now his after the chief's death. If the freak disagrees with that and dares to take his prey, then he could just die in the hands of these goon goblins. 3 goons charged at him from the front. They were clumsy, but they had the numbers advantage. Dodging is the only feasible move. The outcast can't believe that these low-level goblins are giving him a hard time defending. They ineptly scratched and bit his skin, tearing up his cloak, but the outcast gritted his teeth and locked in. He can't just die here. He's only getting started. He needs to survive. His desperation led to goblin blood being spilled on the floor. Once the first goblin was felled, the other 2 were afflicted with fear of coming next. The outcast has brought out his roughly made dagger to take one down and scare the other 2. He raised the janky blade and threatened to kill them if they did not leave at once. These bastards only act tough when they feel secure that they can overwhelm an enemy. But in the face of real danger, they would 100% fold. That is what's happening right now. They were so cocky while declaring that the prey belonged to them, but the first sight of a weapon made them run for their pathetic lives. Mr. Outcast heaved a sigh of relief. His adrenaline was up to the roof. The girl came up to him to ask if he was okay and to thank him for saving her once again. Unlike the other goblins, Mr. Outcast never laid a finger on her. He would even lay his life on the line to protect her again and again. She doesn't want him to die or be harmed in any way, as he's not like the other goblins. The girl says that, and it has always been that way. Mr. Outcast here was once a human too. He first awakened in the same miserable room where prey was stashed. He did not expect that instead of meeting God after being hit by a dump truck, he'd be transported to another world with a system instead. Although he has one of those OP systems, it has still not been fully activated. Other than being able to see some of his stats, it does not seem to have any other useful functions. However, he has not been idle these past few days. He has been talking with this woman prey for quite some time now. And from the stories and facts she told him, Mr. Outcast has gained some semblance of understanding of this mystical world. Unlike the previous world he lived in, this realm created by God houses various powerful races, creatures, and monsters. Like majestic dragons and insidious demons, humans have carved out their place on this warring continent with their fierce strength. As for the goblin race that he reincarnated into, they are widely considered the weakest and filthiest monsters in the realm. The scum of scum. That's also reflected in his abysmally low stats. Even among the goblins in this cave, he would belong to the lowest percentile in raw power. Mr. Outcast's name is Lin Tian, a level 5 goblin with God's blessing. He has no class yet, and he has a horrible stat spread. He has the racial skill of Gene Devour. Equipped with the rough stone knife, his overall combat power is at 30 points. In the past few days, he learned that there is a surefire way to get stronger as a goblin, and that is to mate with girls. You see, goblins have the ability to get stronger through constant mating and reproduction, but their race is incapable of producing female offspring. So, to reproduce, they can only mate with other female creatures, leading them to a life of constant plundering and raiding. But Lin Tian used to be a human from the modern world. Doing such horrific things is deplorable to him. The girl saw him skulking in the corner and told him not to worry, as, after spending these days together, she could understand what was going on now. Lin Tian is different, and he does not want to live among these vile goblins. Just one look in his miserable eyes, and you could see that she hit the nail on the head with her assessment. She assured him that when the Night Order came to rescue her, she would tell the troops that Lin Tian had saved her. The Night Order is known to be always fair and just. Those guys will definitely let Lin Tian live peacefully in the village. Now that he's thinking about it, that idea does not seem too bad, right? The lady certainly brought up a feasible idea. Even if he can't activate his system, they just need to hold out until the humans find the lair and rescue the girl, putting her under protection. He can just survive first and then slowly figure out how to activate the system and how it works. Before all that, it seemed like they would need to fight a few bastards, as the other goblins must have figured out where the prey stash was. Now that the goblins were coming back for more, Lin Tian hurriedly instructed the pink-haired lady to hide in their designated hiding spot. Hidden behind the rocks, she watched as Lin Tian brought out his rough stone knife. A desperate Gunner goblin was maniacally running away from humans while fervently looking for something to mate with. He wanted to get stronger so he wouldn't be killed. Fortunately, the desperate but straightforward movement was easy to predict, and Lin Tian swiftly slashed the Gunner goblin's throat open. At least now they know that some humans have entered the lair. Those guys might be here to rescue the lady. She immediately got up and ran towards the cavern's exit, expecting to see the rescue team, the mighty Holy Order. Lin Tian tagged along beside her. Upon reaching the spot where the action was happening, the two watched as a knight wearing heavy armor and a resplendent cloak cut down multiple goblins at once with a sword chi slash. Lin Tian did not know whether to feel fearful or relieved to see such a powerful human. Loader is a level 25 human swordsman with a crap ton of stats. His skills include the sword chi slash, sword dance, and the holy skill, sword return to heaven. Equipped with the judgment sword and platinum armor, his overall combat power is at 400 points. If you compare that with Lin Tian's paltry 30 points, the difference is astounding. This is his first time seeing such high attributes since he was transported to this world. Is this Loader guy really human? The lady did not hesitate to run up to the knight, smiling, waving, and calling him commander. Meanwhile, Lin Tian was looking at the dead goblins strewn all over the place. Then he lifted his gaze and saw something even more odd and alarming. The knight has raised his judgment sword, seemingly intending to slice the surviving captive, the lady Lin Tian has been protecting for days now. The little outcast goblin almost took the slash as he used all the strength in his meager body to push the lady out of the sword's trajectory. They clumsily landed to the side. The pain of hitting the floor hard is preferable to being cut down in half, right? Lin Tian was confused and alarmed. These people are supposed to be here for a rescue operation, right? Why are they turning their blades to a fellow human? Maybe it's because the cave is too dark that they mistook the lady for a goblin too. Loader looked down on the victims that disgracefully dodged his attack. The lady tried to appeal to the commander, introducing herself as Kelya. The scum knight just told Kelya to shut her mouth. Of course, he already knew that it was her, but Loader assessed that she must have been defiled by the goblins already. She might even be carrying a little evil goblin spawn at this point. He thinks it's ridiculous for a filthy thing to expect mercy from a respected knight. He brazenly told the poor girl to repent for her sins to the Great Holy Mother. Kelya felt scared and helpless as she tugged on the commander's cloak while pleading. She insisted that although she was captured, she was not defiled by the goblins. She pointed at Lin Tian and asserted that because this brave little goblin was protecting her, she was kept safe and away from the rest of the lair. Loader just scoffed at her explanation. He proclaimed that if she's going to make up stories, at least make ones that are believable. Only a fool would believe that a goblin has a heart. Kelya can just go and meet her end along with these lowly and hateful creatures. Lin Tian can't believe it. Is this really the morality of humans in this world? Something pushed him to move and run. He grabbed Kelya and aimed for the exit at the other side of the cave to get the hell out of this situation. Using a simple wooden club, he intends to clash against Loader's judgment sword in hopes of buying just a little more time. He did not expect this outcome at all, but just as the knight's blade was about to cleave him in half, a mysterious glow shot into the room and lit up the whole spot. An angelic voice told Loader to wait up, and the knight complied, stopping his attacks and falling silent. Meanwhile, Lin Tian has been encased by a golden light sphere of protection. A blonde woman wearing a holy veil and controlling the golden magic while surrounded by heavily armored soldiers thinks that there is something strange about Lin Tian. Kelia called the angelic woman the Holy Maiden. She crawled towards Holy Maiden with hope in her eyes. The Holy Maiden accepted her with open arms and lifted Kelia off the ground. She handed Kelia to Commander Loader to the side and turned her attention to the goblin encased in her golden magic. She asked if he could understand her words. As far as Lin Tian knows, this woman is the Holy Maiden Ephraia, the spokesperson of the temple Kelia has told him about. If he wants to leave this place, she might be the only hope. Lin Tian stood up and confirmed the identity of the Holy Maiden. He asserted that he was not a monster of this world, and he used to be human. He just became a goblin because of a bizarre accident. He can explain everything in detail if the Holy Order would just take him along with them. Loader had to admit that the little guy did seem a lot smarter than those goblins that he slaughtered. Intelligent goblins are pretty rare. Ephraia added that goblins are usually stupid and lowly creatures that can't speak and think so fluently. With that in mind, this little one might be a gift from the Holy Mother. Holy Maiden gently looked at Kelia and confirmed whether the goblin was harmless or not. The lady vigorously campaigned for Lin Tian, saying that not only did he not hurt her, but he also protected her from the other goblins while providing food for her. Ephraia smiled and decided that since the little one was so special, they could take it back to the town. But they will conduct thorough studies before making a final decision. She stared down Lin Tian and asked if he would be okay with that arrangement. With no other choice, he trusted Holy Maiden, who is known to be a kind and empathetic figure. He agreed to tag along with the Holy Order. He was just relieved that he finally met someone who was willing to listen to reason. Staying in this lair only means death. He might as well go to a human town and prove his innocence. Ephraia raised her hand and made a bizarre gesture. That slight movement dissolved the golden defensive sphere holding Lin Tian. She turned around and ordered everyone out of the cave. Lin Tian came up to Ephraia to thank her for her kindness, promising to properly repay her soon. A twisted, smug smile appeared on the Holy Maiden's face. Lin Tian heard the sound of a blade penetrating through skin and flesh. He smelled human blood, suddenly painting the floor. Loader has stabbed Kelia in the stomach. The moment Lin Tian turned around to see what was happening, he was greeted by the sight of the lady who survived, and held onto the hope of rescue, falling to the ground in the hands of her fellow humans. Loader even stabbed her in the stomach, as he must have thought that Kelia was carrying a goblin offspring. Lin Tian was speechless, frozen in place at the utter horror of humanity's ugly side. Then he heard Ephraya's angelic voice as she demanded that Lin Tian repay her well the moment they got back to the town. He'd never heard something more demonic in his life. 1 week later, we find ourselves under the clear blue sky of a peaceful town. The plaza bell rang, demanding the attention of the townsfolk. In the town square, a stage has been set up by the Holy Order as Commander Loader gives an impassioned speech to the villagers, the children of God. He emphasized the great harm that the previous goblin raid had brought to the peaceful Brighttown. The goblins used despicable, sneaky attacks to slaughter 30 residents of Brighttown, an unforgivable challenge to the authority of the Holy Order. Hearing this made the townsfolk relive the helplessness and anger they felt for the damned goblins. They demanded blood for blood and an eye for an eye. Humans and goblins are mortal enemies. Loader continued that the Holy Order, on behalf of the temple, has purged these hateful goblins, successfully avenging the fallen villagers. The Holy Maiden stepped forward and called to the people to continue praying and devoutly offering themselves to the temple. With her angelic presence, she grazed the townsfolk with a symbol of hope and purity, as she promised that the temple would always protect her devout followers. The townsfolk ate this act up, as they chanted celebratory shouts to the knights and the temple. Meanwhile, in the Holy Maiden's quarters, the atmosphere was drab and dark, seemingly ill-fitting of her status and what she represents. Looking at an esoteric text containing some iffy diagrams and magical scripts, she heaved a sigh of relief that today's sermon was a massive success, as always. The people are as foolish as ever. While holding a red vial of liquid, Ephraia, in her casual wear, was pleased that the townsfolk would pray even more devoutly to the temple and, in turn, offer more tributes to her cause. She was not just talking to herself, as someone had been locked up in her quarters for a whole week now. Hearing her captive's voice soured her otherwise successful propagandistic venture earlier. Lin Tian has been bound, gagged with a metal mask, tortured in every way possible, had his left eye gouged out, and suffered the most inhumane treatment possible. Hanged in the wall, his bloodshot eyes shot daggers to the damn witch that put him through hell on earth. Ephraia looked at him with indifference. The goblin still holding on for dear life was a testament to his strong vitality. It is no wonder why the temple can't seem to eradicate these pesky goblins from the continent. Since she has some free time right now, maybe it's time to see how poison affects goblins. Hearing her spout all these vile things with her angelic voice made Lin Tian sick to his stomach. He yelled out with all the anger stewing inside. Ephraia deceived him just like how she's deceiving everyone in Brighttown. She even had Kelia killed, an innocent survivor. This is what the so-called Holy Order does. This is their so-called human justice. Speaking out against the demonic Holy Maiden carries its consequences. This time, it's getting a wooden stick shoved deep into his mouth, causing Lin Tian to throw up blood. Freya finds it strange that a weak and trashy creature like Lin Tian, a lustful goblin, dares to question her brand of human justice. In her mind, this little guy bewitched Kelya. That lady speaking up for a measly goblin is a betrayal of humanity and the Holy Order. Her death was her final loyalty. Holy Maiden is already set in her belief that goblins are nothing more than vermin on this continent, a race of good-for-nothing creatures that only bring grief. For a Holy Maiden to speak to, one should already be considered a great favor. She thinks that Lin Tian shouldn't be full of hate, but be more appreciative instead. He should just use his small and disgusting body to contribute to human and Holy Order experiments. Her hand glowed with a golden gleam. A magical circle appeared behind Lin Tian, and what followed was the unbearable pain of being burned by the spell. The magical fire burned his hatred and converted it to utter hopelessness. Lin Tian asked himself if this was it. Is he going to die such a miserable death so unwillingly? Maybe it was all his fault for being too foolish. He was reincarnated from a human to a low-level goblin and thoughtlessly held on to his human compassion while thinking that the Holy Order was righteous and kind. Lin Tian's weakness and naivety were his deadliest mistakes that led him to the Holy Maiden's torture dungeon. After being taken back to the human village of Brighttown, Loder and Freya took turns torturing and toying with him in every possible way. They never believed a word he said, no matter how much he pleaded. Ultimately, Lin Tian would not last long, being toyed to death by a sadistic witch and her depraved inclinations. His second death was excruciating. It was the worst way to go. If he could do it again, he vowed to never trust humans. If he could get a do-over, he would do it right. Lin Tian, the goblin, would grind their bones and drain their blood. He will make them suffer just as they pushed him to the brink of insanity. Well, that's only if he could live again. Lin Tian opened his bloodshot eyes in confusion. He looked left and right and felt life. How is he still alive after all those painfully twisted experiments? And where the hell is he? To answer his question, the system promptly appeared to tell him that the Goblin Life Simulation System had been activated. His final evaluation was that he died. Due to his foolishness, he forgot that he was a goblin and that humans would never trust a goblin, nor would they pity one. He died in torment, and the pain of this week-long torture will be imprinted upon his soul. Suffering one of the worst fates for any transmigrator, he will be given a restart for a new life. So this is the system, one that only activates upon death. If he's reading everything correctly, this means that he can be brought back to life. But it seems he will be reborn as the lowest creature once again, a common goblin. Just to make sure, he asked the system what his yes or no choice represents. It promptly answered back that if he chooses no, his soul will dissipate, a permanent death. If he chooses yes, he will retain his current memory and system, sending him back to the Goblin Cave a week before his death. All these parameters might seem a little confusing at first, but he eventually got it. With a twisted smile, Lin Tian reckons that this is the universe's way of giving him another shot for revenge. He must pay back every sick and twisted thing that Loder and Freya did to him. Without hesitation, he chose the option to go back in time and change his decisions. The only thing fueling him was a sick desire for vengeance. From now on, his Goblin Life 2.0 will begin. No more Mr. Nice Guy. The void surrounding him dissipated into a digital mess as the process of transferring his body to the Goblin Cave commences. When the process was done, he was given a little something to help him survive a bit longer in this second iteration. The system has slightly strengthened him. Lin Tian looked at his hands and felt a little lighter and more robust. The enhancement really was slight, as the system said, but it's a lot better than nothing. The system warned him that although he had been reborn, the danger was not over yet. By this time, the human Holy Order is about to reach its location. If he dies again, the system will not be able to revive him once more. It's just as Lin Tian expected. Right now, he has to think of ways to deal with the Holy Order's inevitable arrival. He can't let his guard down even a little bit. First, he asked the system what it could do. Well, the system is called the Goblin Life Simulation System. It enables him to simulate his life to foresee future events. Every choice he makes will lead to different outcomes. Each simulation goes on for 24 hours. At the end of that, he will earn points that can be exchanged for items. Seeing the future through simulations is nothing to scoff at. Lin Tian reckons that he can certainly work with this. He opened the prompt and quickly started his first life simulation. The current scenario is a mission to escape the Goblin Cave. With Holy Knight Loder discovering the Goblin Lair, Lin Tian needs to make the following choices. The first option is to warn his fellow goblins and unite to face Loder, Freya, and their men. This would yield 10 points. The second option is to abandon the other goblins and escape before everyone gets wiped out. This would yield 5 points. The third and final option is to hide in the cave and just pray that Loader and the Holy Order don't find him. That's a crisp 0 points added. Lin Tian took the time to carefully consider all the options. Although he was given 3 to choose from, some options are hopeless. He knew that even if all the goblins in the cave united, they couldn't match Loader's monstrous power. Escaping is the only thing that can save him. But thanks to the system, he can simulate the first option, the one with the highest score. If he can exchange those points for a weapon, he might be able to defeat them with a sneak attack. Just as he thought, the simulation ended with his death. He would be able to successfully lead the goblins in a desperate battle against Holy Knight Loader, but the large gap in strength would get every goblin wiped out. The system advised him to recognize his strengths before making a crucial decision. So it's confirmed that relying on the goblins is not a feasible way to survive, but he still acquired 10 points from the simulation. Excited, he immediately opened the points exchange shop. He was greeted by the projection of multiple weapons to buy. Unfortunately, most of them were priced in the hundreds, or even multiple thousands. Lin Tian's measly 10 points in the bank are not nearly enough. At least he found a dagger that cost exactly 10 points. It was an elven lightweight swift blade. A small dagger crafted by elves, fragile but incredibly sharp. He immediately bought it and equipped the new blade. It raised his strength by 15 points and his speed by 10%. It really was exceptionally sharp, basically worlds apart from rough goblin weapons. If he could hit a vital spot, a one-hit kill could be possible. With that out of the way, Lin Tian has one more question for the system. He was sent back a week ago, but he can't see any trace of Kellia in the cave. Where did she go? The system explained that due to Lin Tian's rebirth, some timeline details have changed. In this timeline, Kellia was not captured in the goblin raid, and she continues to live a happy life in Brighttown. Lin Tian was surprised to hear that the young lady was safe and sound. She did not have to endure the trauma of being captured by goblins and dying at the hands of her rescuers. A small smile crept up in Lin Tian's mouth. In some convoluted way, it looks like he fulfilled his promise to Kellia. In that case, he has no more concerns. There's no need to hold back against the Holy Order. But first, he must escape and survive. He found the narrowest passage out of the cave. The entrance outside is smaller, so the guards posted up should be relatively weaker. Lin Tian lurked around the cavern's opening and spotted 2 guards. They were talking about their disgust for goblins and how easy this job would be. He took his time while staying hidden, planning how he would tackle this problem. The guards were relieved to be assigned to the small entrance. Any goblins that run out would just be trash that can be crushed with one hammer swing. But they mustn't forget that Lord Loader ordered them to kill any girl who tries to escape in the chaos must be killed. They can't let any survivor reach the village. Hearing this made Lin Tian furious. This holy order and their holy rule would even kill innocent people of their own kind for no valid reason, let alone a goblin. He has no other choice but to fight his way out of these guards. So, he devised a plan and pinched his nose together to make his voice pitch higher. Then, he acted as if she was a girl from Brighttown, frantically pleading to be saved from the grasp of goblins. The guards were pleased that they were finally getting some action. All they have to do is kill this straggler, and Lord Loader will reward them. They slowly approached the cavern opening with a hidden blade. With a fake bright smile, the guard called to the fake survivor to come out and not to be afraid now that the knights were here. He did not even get to finish his deceitful spill before his blood was splattered all over the cave walls. Lin Tian came out with the eyes of a cold-blooded killer. His new blade was baptized by the blood of his first kill. Let the human slaughter begin. The second guard stared at his frozen comrade in bewilderment, who was shaking for some reason. With words of confusion as to why he was taking so long to kill some weak goblin, he headed towards him. He couldn't even imagine that something could go wrong in such an obvious situation. In his opinion, they were the hunters, and the goblin was the victim. However, Lin Tian didn't think so. From the moment the humans decided to betray his trust, they had switched roles. He only had one goal now, to become stronger and take revenge. Throwing himself at the guard who didn't realize what was happening, he sent him flying. Due to the effect of surprise, he couldn't react in time and lost his balance. Now he was nothing more than an easy target for our hero. Already in the next moment his sword reached the enemy and left a large wound on the body of the warrior. The guy could not believe that some goblin could defeat him so easily. However, his thoughts were interrupted by a sharp pain that prevented him from thinking clearly. He couldn't stand on his feet and fell to the ground with a painful cry. Raising his frightened eyes, the guard looked at the goblin he and his friend had wanted to kill a few minutes ago. But now the situation was completely different. He had a feeling that the goblin in front of him was a demon, and he was partially right. Hoping that the goblin would somehow miraculously understand him, the man began to beg him not to kill him. Right now, it was the only thing he could do. He showed Lin Tian a medallion depicting a woman and a child, and said that he had a wife and daughter waiting for his return. It was quite ironic for our hero to watch the man who had not hesitated to try to kill him a few minutes ago, now asking for mercy under such a cover. The knight continued to justify himself, saying that he only did it because he was following the orders of a holy order. He promised that if our hero let him go, he would bring him a bag of gold coins and a human girl. The guard tried his best to convince Lin Tian, not even realizing how much he didn't care about anything he said right now. In his short life in this cursed world, our hero had managed to become completely disillusioned with humans. The order guard thought he could fool him with his promises and smile, but Lin Tian could clearly see the knife behind his back. Unfortunately for the guard, he never realized it. Seeing our hero as nothing more than a mindless goblin, he pulled out the knife and lunged at him with a snide laugh. The very next instant, blood splashed out. However, it did not belong to Lin Tian. Among the two of them, the only one who was brainless and now headless as well was the guard. The broken medallion and the dagger he never had time to use were left lying on the ground. It was finally over. After this fight, Lin Tian was even more convinced that he shouldn't trust anyone, especially humans. Suddenly, some noise and a bright light came from deep within the forest, which could only mean that Saint Maiden and Loader were already close by. Right now, he was far from being in a condition to oppose them. He needed some time to become stronger. After taking a shirt from one of the guards, our hero Lin Tian set off. He promised that he would meet Loader and Freya again, and then they would pay for all the pain he had experienced because of them. If Freya and Loader came to the place where the two dead guards were lying. After seeing that they were dead, Loader wondered what had happened here. Normally, 2 guards could easily stop even 24 goblins, but this case was out of line. If there was a creature capable of defeating 2 armed warriors, it was most likely a mutant goblin. They were the ones who most often caused problems for the Holy Order. Letting such a creature escape would mean more trouble in the future. Loader and Freya knew this. Loader kicked the corpse of the guard, who in his opinion was just a useless piece of trash, unable to handle even a mutated goblin. If Freya, on the other hand, was incredibly excited and agitated at the mention of the mutated goblin. Her unhealthy tendencies were making themselves known, and the memories of the days when she had fun with the mutated intelligent goblin added to her excitement. She was eager to get her hands on such an interesting toy again and have fun with it. As evening fell, Lin Tian was able to get far enough away to surely be out of Freya and Loader's reach. After a long and tiring journey, he decided to take a little break and regain his strength. His primary goal was revenge. He was going to do to the Order what they had done to him. Goblins could improve their characteristics by mating and devouring. By improving their own characteristics and producing offspring, they could raise a stronger next generation and expand their power. By putting this plan into action and becoming stronger, Lin Tian planned to make every human in this world live in fear of death, and every woman moan and howl at his feet. Suddenly, his thoughts were interrupted by some rustling that came from the bushes behind him. Lin Tian was immediately alarmed, as he didn't rule out the possibility that the Holy Order had continued to search for him. Therefore, as soon as he saw the clothed silhouette, he immediately rushed to attack without a second thought. Attacking the enemy first and taking them by surprise was always a good idea. His tactic worked. The stranger was indeed shocked by his sudden appearance. He was so frightened that he stumbled and began to fall to the ground. However, Lin Tian was still wrong about something. The stranger in front of him was a goblin, and judging from his behavior, he didn't mean him any harm. Our hero was quite surprised by this turn of events, but he immediately put his thoughts in order and became wary. Because of the betrayal he had experienced, he no longer intended to trust anyone so easily. In the next moment, however, the picture he saw before him made all his wariness disappear, replaced by astonishment. In front of him, a beautiful goblin girl was lying on the ground, looking at him with frightened eyes. Lin Tian was surprised, as he had heard that goblins could only be male, but the innocent creature in front of him was clearly a girl. After recovering a bit, the goblin girl began to frightenedly ask Lin Tian not to hurt her, as she had just come here to fetch water. The fact that the goblin girl could speak in full and clear sentences surprised our hero even more. However, when he checked her status window, everything made sense. According to the information provided by the system, the girl was a level 3 goblin. Her profession stated that she was a god messenger, which explained her unusualness. From the skills she had devouring and exuberant growth. But what caught Lin Tian's attention the most was the information that if a male goblin teamed up with a female goblin, then the male goblin would become a legendary goblin god. This information made our hero think becoming a goblin god meant becoming very strong, and this was just what was needed. He didn't want to miss such a good chance. Seeing Lin Tian's gaze, the frightened goblin girl saw it as a danger and started begging him again to let her go. She told him that if she didn't bring water to the village, the tribe leader would beat her to death. Realizing his mistake, Lin Tian apologized and tried to calm the girl down. He gently stroked her shoulder and said that he wouldn't hurt her. He couldn't let her cry as it might attract unnecessary attention. The best solution was to settle the misunderstanding that had arisen. Fortunately, the girl had indeed calmed down and no longer looked so frightened. Crawling over to Lin Tian, she excitedly asked if he could talk too, to which he nodded affirmatively. By nature, goblins couldn't talk properly, so it was very difficult for the girl to communicate with her tribesmen. The girl was very surprised by Lin Tian's kindness and care, as in the tribe, the other goblins only beat and scolded her. She liked being around him so much that she offered him to return with her to the tribe. After hearing about the tribe, Lin Tian started asking her about it. Since he still wasn't sure if he could escape the chase from the Holy Order, the best solution was to lay low and wait in some goblin village where he would be like the others. Such a sudden change in our hero's demeanor confused the girl a bit. But after looking at Lin Tian with her charming eyes, she still agreed to take him to the village. A sly smile appeared on our hero's face. He had long thought about where he could find his subordinates. Fortunately, the opportunity presented itself. As soon as they arrived in the village, armed goblins came out of the tents. They immediately surrounded the uninvited guest. Like all goblins, they were surprised that Lin Tian was wearing clothes just like humans. To them, something like this was new to them, and they had never seen such a strange goblin before. At the same time, our hero was assessing their numbers and was pleased that he had come across such a large village. Now he could begin to gain their trust. And he began by asking permission to join their village and meet the boss. The goblins did not like such requests at all. Some strange guy coming to their house and demanding something more. Instead, they were going to catch this insolent guy, beat him up, and then bring him to the boss. Suddenly, they were interrupted by a goblin girl who asked them to wait and not to attack the important guest until he meets the boss. This move should have delayed the fight for a while, but all plans were spoiled by the boss himself, who heard the noise and came out to see what was going on. All the other goblins immediately quieted down at the approach of the boss, and our hero tensed up. The boss was clearly not in the mood to be woken up. Lin Tian was tense for a reason. The boss had reached level 25 and was equipped with some pretty good weapons combined with an impressive set of skills. Our hero was surprised that this village had such a strong boss. And the unfortunate thing is that he will need to defeat the boss to take his place and get his gang of goblins to speed up his own progression. Entering the foreign goblin lair, the chief asked the goblin girl what the deal was with the outsider, and she explained that he had brought Lin Tian in because he had nowhere to go. That explanation seemed satisfactory to the chief, but not for good reasons. He immediately handed the order to kill the outsider freak and eat his meat. The tribe celebrated in a frenzy. Pulling out his knife, Lin Tian had to think fast for a way out. The only feasible idea that struck him was to offer his services to create new weapons for the tribe that would make them stronger. Hearing such an interesting proposition blunted the chief's bloodlust, ordering his goblins to wait up. This goblin priest started making his way closer to Lin Tian, seemingly scanning him from head to toe. Since the young orc does not have the distinct smell of a liar, the chief asked what kind of weapons he could offer. Hours upon hours of watching blacksmithing shows in the previous world have led him here. As long as there are iron ores, he'd be able to make simple tools and better weapons given some time. Given that the chief can speak in the human language, it's safe to assume that higher-level monsters possess higher levels of intelligence. Lin Tian put forth an idea that gaining iron tools would equip the tribe with the tools to stop fearing humans. The proposal was too tempting, so the chief gave in and gave Lin Tian 3 days to find ores and produce results in exchange for his life. The chief even bundled up the goblin girl's life alongside Lin Tian if he failed to do this job. As soon as the leader retreated to his quarters, the rest of the tribe followed suit. One thing's for sure is that the old chief is a ruthless bastard who'd kill his own kind in cold blood. Confronting him head-on is out of the question. He'll have to make iron tools to buy time while covertly getting stronger. That night, a scout party was released to the barren woods, guided by the moonlight. The group, including the goblin girl, has been walking all day and all night, so it's naturally exhausting. But when she showed even a tiny sign of fatigue, the rest of the goblins would quickly gang up against her to berate and beat her down. They treat her like a punching bag, seeing her as lesser than the average male goblins. This disgusting display of behavior earned the leading goblin a head injury after getting rocked by a rock through the back of his head. Lin Tian clarified that he brought these bastards along to help find iron and not to fight senselessly. He briefed them about the ore's appearance before heading out. If the search party wants to stay alive, each one needs to find one piece of ore in the valley ahead. Failure to comply and hit the quota would of course be punishable by death. Hearing Lin Tian say that while holding an iron knife made the goblins tremble in fright. A fire has been lit under their asses, scrambling in every direction in hopes of finding an ore unless they want to get clapped by the chief. Deep in thought, Lin Tian admitted that what he's trying to do is just temporary. He'd get killed in just a matter of time once he outlived his usefulness. But there's an obvious recourse through this. The system was practically telling him to mate with the goblin girl to attain the legendary goblin god status. So, Lin Tian approached the crying bullied lady, gently telling her to stop crying. He even kneeled right next to her so she could hear what he was saying a lot clearer. Lin Tian proposed that they stay together. If she's under his wing, no one would mess with her. She will be protected, she'll get meat to eat, a warm place to stay, and some much-needed peace. He assured her that he was a man of his word. But they're too weak at the moment. To avoid being bullied, they both need strength. Hearing the possibility of getting stronger, the goblin girl's eyes glimmered with hope as she blushed. Without mincing his words, Lin Tian asked the lady if she would be willing to bear his children for the sake of power. Her timid response to that was par for the course. She had never been part of any kind of mating ritual before. But if it's the kind and good-hearted Lin Tian, she wants to explore a little bit more. She did not get another word as a response. She got a deep and mind-melting kiss instead. After the initial shock was gone, she was able to enjoy the passionate kiss more comfortably. Lin Tian slowly guided her body under his, laying her down on the cold ground while holding hands. Already having trouble breathing from the arousal, she pushed for Lin Tian to go ahead and give her his babies so they could get stronger. The first time it entered, the system pinged that the host would have a total of 7 children in this conception. Due to the talent limit, Lin Tian only gained 9 attacks, 100 HP, and 10 defense. When Lin Tian was done, he was drenched in sweat, his body exposed to the elements. The little goblin has reached level 7, gaining the title of Defiler. His overall combat strength jumped to 65. Not only did his level increase, but his form also improved with leaps and bounds. Right now, he'd have a much higher chance of winning against that goblin priest chief. Picking his human clothes back up, Lin Tian draped them over the goblin girl's naked body. From now on, it will be his responsibility to protect her life. She was just happy that a fellow goblin was being nice to her. But their romantic evening was interrupted by some hurried voice asking for help in a panic. It turned out to be one of the bastard goblins who accidentally bumped into a menacing demon wolf in the process of gathering ores. Lin Tian's eyes locked in on the iron ores. That's what they need. But the fool who got it brought back some trouble for the rest. Unsheathing his blade, he sharply stared at the incoming giant wolf while the goblin girl worried. The poor goblin that did not know any better taunted a brutal beast and was now about to pay the price. Fortunately, Lin Tian became strong and fast enough to deal with some severe damage as he stuck his blade on the wolf's neck. It was a one-hit, one kill, and the fleeing goblin was speechless. Walking up to the ore-holding little shit, Lin Tian increased the intimidation in his voice to pressure the goblin to hand the material over. Of course, the little guy had no other choice but to comply in utter terror. Appraising the ore, Lin Tian guaranteed its high quality. If they could find some more, making potent weapons would be easy peasy. The next morning, a trail of smoke from the fire from the goblin camp could be seen over the forest. Lin Tian had just finished processing the obtained iron ore into a spearhead, and was now showing off the result of his work to the surprised goblins. The iron spearhead easily pierced through the skin and skull of the demonic wolf killed last night. Stone and bone materials would never have been able to achieve such a result. Even the goblin boss was surprised by the weapon made by our hero and was even speechless by this. Lin Tian pulled out the spear from the wolf's head and with a smile explained to the goblins that this iron spear was something he had made himself from iron ore. Lin Tian had just finished processing the obtained iron ore into a spearhead and was now showing off the result of his work to the surprised goblins. The goblin chief immediately desired to obtain the same spear. Lin Tian used this moment to raise the spear to the sky and attract the attention of all the goblins. Once all the goblins were staring dreamily at the desired weapon, he asked if they all wanted the same spear. Of course they did, and immediately asked him to make them one too. The goblins looked at the spear as if mesmerized, with open mouths and drooling. To them, an ordinary iron spear was like a legendary item. But the way Lin Tian attracted the attention and respect of the goblin tribe did not please the goblin priest, who was now darker than a storm cloud. In the treacherous mind of the goblin boss, a cunning idea was immediately born to use our hero and then get rid of him as a growing threat to his authority. He quickly returned all the attention to himself, and in front of the whole tribe recognized that Lin Tian can make iron weapons and seems not to be lying. But that doesn't mean anything yet. If our hero wants to stay, he has to make 50 spears in 2 days. And that's not easy. If he doesn't, he'll become meat for the tribe. Even the ordinary goblins were surprised by such harshness of their boss, who has somehow become as bad and treacherous as humans. Even so, they were ready to help Lin Tian fulfill the chieftain's demand. Lin Tian looked at the departing chieftain and couldn't help but smile as everything was going according to his plan. The fact that the chieftain didn't kill him immediately was his key mistake. Now this idiot wouldn't be able to do anything. 2 days passed and the day of delivery of the spears came. To everyone's joy and the chief's unhappy surprise, Lin Tian managed to do everything and threw a full basket of iron-tipped spears on the ground. All the goblins nearby danced with joy when Lin Tian informed the chieftain that he had brought what he had asked for. The goblin priest started smiling like crazy, and even pretended to congratulate our hero for completing the task. A few minutes later, all the goblins in the camp received an iron spear each, and it was time for the feast. The goblins lit a bonfire, and the chief invited everyone to celebrate Lin Tian joining their tribe. while allowing everyone to eat meat at their pleasure in honor of such an event. When the fire began to die down a little and there were enough coals, they roasted a fat, freshly caught boar. And the first biggest piece was left especially for Lin Tian. The goblin girl personally gave him this gift, as this sacrificial boar was left especially for him. Lin Tian hadn't eaten delicious meat for a long time, so he greedily began to eat. But after the first bite, he realized that it was a trap. The meat was poisoned. He fell to the ground and tried to spit the meat out, but it was too late. The stupid goblin girl had unknowingly served him poisoned food, and now she was panicking and asking what had happened to him. Just at that moment, the one who set it all up appeared. It was the goblin priest, of course. He immediately began to mock the stupidity of our hero, who, in his opinion, thought himself smart and strong enough to challenge the authority of the chief and seize power in the tribe. But the boss of the goblins warned him that nothing will work out, and on this path only death awaits him. And as punishment for his insolence, Lin Tian will lose the things he values so much, like that ugly goblin girl he cared so much about. She will be the first to pay for her betrayal. With his sharp claw, he defiantly bled her, hinting at what he was going to do after taking the knife away from Lin Tian. The goblin leader would have continued his taunts, but suddenly, blood spurted out in all directions, and the goblin girl's face darkened from the unreality of what was happening. Would she really die just like that? But the blood was not hers, and the free-flying hand of the goblin chief was proof of that. The goblin boss did not have time to put his threats into action and only wasted time with empty threats, giving Lin Tian time to recover from the poison, or rather stop pretending. Now the goblin chief held his pathetic stump of an arm, and through the pain couldn't understand how this could have happened. Lin Tian only laughed off the old bastard in response. The real fool here was only him. In fact, thanks to the system, our hero knew that the chieftain would try to poison him. He was just acting to let him off his guard. The spectacle was perfect. The goblin chief lowered his head and remained silent. Not a single muscle moved, and it seemed that he was thinking about surrendering. But that was a deceptive impression. Then he quickly activated one of his priest spells and turned his bone armor into a weapon, with which he launched one last desperate attack on our hero. However, after increasing his strength level thanks to the goblin girl, it was very easy for Lin Tian to dodge. The unbalanced chieftain was in a very vulnerable position, and Lin Tian didn't miss the chance to take advantage of it. Gathering his strength, he delivered a powerful slashing strike straight at the neck of the former chief. His head rolled across the clearing. The other goblins were now staring at Lin Tian in horror, afraid of repeating their leader's fate. But killing them was not in our hero's plans at all. Walking to the center of the village, Lin Tian loudly announced that from today, he was the new boss, and he himself would lead the goblins forward, onward to glory and wealth, to attack humans and elves. Now there will always be plenty of meat and girls, and no one will ever underestimate the goblins and stand in their way again. Hearing this, the whole tribe of goblins began to lose their minds with joy. They raised their hands to the sky and couldn't resist dancing and saying that Lin Tian was the best boss in the world who would lead them to the blissful, endless meat. To confirm his promises, Lin Tian pointed to the corpse of the former chief and gave it to the goblins. At first, they fell silent in indecision, but then they rushed forward greedily. Tearing even raw meat with their teeth, they were not going to stop, even though this pile of meat had once ruled them. Goblins are simple. The one who has power has authority. Those without power are just fodder. Such cruel creatures our hero was going to use to fulfill his revenge. Now, after conquering the tribe of goblins, he was going to capture more female elven captives to raise a stronger generation of goblins. Apart from the goblins themselves, a pair of eyes hidden in the bushes watched this entire show. An elven scout, she had been here since the beginning and had been monitoring the situation in the goblin camp. And what she saw now did not please her at all. Now she was going to report it to the elven village as soon as possible. The female elf named Kasana, who witnessed the whole problem in the goblin tribe, rushes back to the elf tribe to relay the information. She jumps from building top to building top just to reach her destination, as it seems the elves don't know how stairs work. When she gets to the top, one of the elf maidens refers to her as the princess and is glad she's back. The maiden tries to stop her from going inside to see the clan mother, because she seems busy, but the princess doesn't listen, because she has urgent news to report. The princess pushes the door wide open and starts to tell her dear mother the urgent news she had seen in the eastern enchanted forest. She is shocked that the engagement her mother has is with two hefty elf males who are pleasuring her and putting some grapes in her mouth. Kasana stops in her tracks because she hadn't realized she'd find the clan mother in such a position, and quickly apologizes for intruding and turns back to go. She wishes she had listened to the maiden from earlier. The clan mother stops her and tells her to share her message because it must be urgent since she rushed to see her. The male elves quickly adjust and stand guard. The princess then relays that she has important information about the goblin tribe in the forest. The clan mother remarks that goblins are weak and filthy low-level monsters, and wonders what could be so important about them. The princess tells her that this morning she found a black-haired red giant bear in the forest that had been gnawed to its bone, and there were signs of goblin footprints around it. She mentions that the black-haired giant bear is one of the fiercest creatures in the forest, and goblins shouldn't be able to kill such a beast. She tells her she also saw the old chief of the goblin tribe get killed by a young goblin, and she thinks he might have something to do with all this. The clan mother is surprised to hear there's a new chief and mentions that it seems the number of goblins in the forest has recovered quite a bit from when they had last destroyed them. While speaking, she signals to one of her male attendants to come closer, and she places her head and hands on his crotch. The clan mother tells her to take some people to clean up the goblin business, but she orders that she doesn't kill them all but leave some of them alive. The clan mother explains that the potion made from freshly extracted goblin hearts is an excellent tonic for the male elves in the tribe. It helps their virility, if you know what I mean. The princess just answers with a weak yes, blushing red from the awkwardness of the entire situation. The clan mother proposes that the princess take one of the male elves for the night as a reward for her hard work, and mentions that she can have more if one isn't enough. Talk about thirsty. Kasana quickly rushes away in embarrassment and says she'll go investigate the goblins, and will report back if she finds anything. Meanwhile, in the goblin tribe, the lower goblins give Lin some intel about how the elf tribe is structured. They tell him that the enchanted forest has about 30 elf tree houses that are all very tall. Our guy tells the goblin who has spiky hair, as if he doubles as a rock metal band member, that he's going to give him 2 female elves as a reward for getting this intel when they capture the elf tribe. He later orders the goblin to tell the others to sharpen their weapons in preparation. Our spikehead goblin's face lights up with excitement as he conceives the thought of having 2 female elves all to himself. The other goblins just scream out in excitement and say, "Long live the boss." The spikehead goblin swiftly turns around to his assignment of getting the other brothers to prepare their weapons, seeing he has a newly found incentive to devote himself to the job. Lin, who just sits in front of the fireplace where the intel was gathered, calculates the number of elves they'll be up against. He figures that if there are 2 elves per house, they may be up against about 60 of them. Let's not forget about the 10 or so guards, which means there'll be at least 70. Our Lin Tian mentions that since the priest died, he's been busy leading the goblins to the mine, making weapons, and hunting monsters to level up. He goes to the rest of the tribe and tells them they're going to be going for bigger monsters. He tells them starting from today, they'll start hunting for major monsters in the enchanted forest, and the entire tribe screams in excitement. Their first attack is against a dangerous-looking magic boar, and they acquire the skill Giant Fang Attack once they kill it. It seems every successful kill increases the level of all the goblins, and they all acquire the skill from their prey. The second monster is a stone-like monster, and the goblins acquire the skill Stone Skin when they destroy it. Our guy and the lower goblins kill more monsters. One looks like a jaguar, and they acquire the skill Stealth. Another looks like a monkey, and they acquire the skill of Climb. Even Yue helps out with the raids, and it seems she's mastered the art of using the bow and arrow. The goblins also kill a large 2-headed snake, and they acquire the skill Venom Secretion. All this is because the goblins have a secret skill called Devour that allows them to acquire the skills of whoever or whatever they eat. Due to their recent conquests, they've acquired many skills, and their overall skill levels have increased. Our guy checked the stats of one of his goblin soldiers, Spikehead. Spikehead is now level 18, still low level, now a beast slayer, has 231 HP, a strength of 29, and a defense of 40. He has also acquired several skills from every monster they've killed. Our guy realized that the overall combat power of each of the goblins is around 250, which trumps that of the elves, who all have a combat power of 200. He realizes that their tribe's overall strength has surpassed that of the elves, and taking their tribe will be a walk in the park. He checks to ensure that the goblin life simulation system has cooled down from when he last used it, and is ready to run again. Just to be sure, he decides to simulate his attack plan to see how things are going to turn out if they attack the tribe with their present capacity, since the elf tribe is a formidable threat. He tells the system to start the simulation, and the system activates the goblin life simulator based on their present situation. A window pops up in front of him and presents the current scenario, which is the night before the raid. The system shows that our guy leads a greatly strengthened goblin army to raid the elf tribe, confident of success. But the elves ambush them and lead the goblin army into a trap, shooting them all down with arrows. Next up, he and Spikehead, his highest-ranking officer, are captured by the elf matriarch and hanged in the enchanted forest as a warning to the goblins to never mess with elves. The end. The system presents its summary by saying our Lin Tian thought it was foolproof, but it was actually under someone else's control. He gets a score of 0 out of 100 and no reward for running a failed simulation. Lin Tian is worried that this is how the simulation ends and wonders what it means when it says it's under someone else's control. He quickly realizes that there's only one explanation for such a paradox, and declares to the other goblins that it seems the tribe is being watched by the elves. Our guy focuses hard to tap into the keen sense of hearing and smell goblins have, hoping to detect a trace of the elves around. Moments later, he detects something and tells the other goblins. He quickly runs toward the spot, and he finds Kasana, who is rushing back to the elf tribe along with her men. She tells them that she didn't expect such a big change in a few days, and hurries them up so they can return to the tribe to inform the mother of the latest development. While hopping from tree to tree, a couple of arrows soon land on the elf males, and one of them lands on the princess's behind, since Lin Tian needs her alive. They all wince due to the sudden pain from the arrows as they fall to the ground. The male elves seem to have been killed immediately as they were intentionally hit in vital places, but the princess just lies there unable to move. She wonders why she can't use any strength at all. The other goblins don't even listen to her but are just excited to run into a female elf. Kasana, who is now feeling drowsy, wonders if the arrow she was shot with was laced with poison. Our guy walks towards her and tells her he didn't expect to catch her so easily. He tells her she showed up just in time, since they're preparing for their grand finale against the elves, and the princess just lies there in horror. Lin orders the goblins to take them all back to the tribe, and they excitedly oblige. The next morning, the princess, who is fast asleep due to the impact of the sedative used on her, is quickly woken up by the goblin when Lin Tian approaches. They quickly pour water on her, which causes her to wake up. Her clothes look very torn from being rough-handled by the goblins, and her limbs are tied up. Our guy grabs her by the head and lifts her so he can talk to her. Spikehead excitedly tells him that he ensured no one touched her, and he's reserved the female elf just for him. Lin Tian just expressionlessly stares at the princess and figures out that the body fluids of goblins seem to have a special paralyzing and stimulating effect on female creatures. This may be why the clan mother keeps harvesting them for tonic. Our guy believes this gives them a tactical advantage against winning the matriarchal elves. Kasana, who is boiling with anger, calls Lin Tian a lowly creature and asks him what gives him the gut to kidnap a princess and dare attack the elves. She tells him he thinks he's so tough, but they would have been annihilated ages ago if not for her mother's kindness. She threatens that her mother won't let them go if they as much as touch a single hair on her head. Lin Tian calls bull and says he doesn't think it's kindness that has kept the goblins alive. He tells her the elves she's talking about, and the ones his subordinates talk about seem to be quite different people since the elves he's heard about are ruthless to goblins. Our guy is certain that though his subordinates are eggheads, they don't lie. He's sure that the elves could have completely wiped out all the goblins in the forest, but the sheer number of goblins living in the forest can't just be out of kindness. An odd realization hits the princess, and she wonders why the clan mother ordered her to keep a few of them alive. Maybe she just wanted some of that good tonic. Lin Tian feels that the story doesn't add up, but he believes he'll get to the bottom of it when he leads the tribe to take the elf tribe that night. Our guy orders the captains to go devour the other two dead elves while he deals with the princess, so the goblins gladly rush to go do their business. Lin focuses his gaze on Kasana, and it seems he has other plans for her. She suddenly realizes what his plans are. Lin Tian starts to feel sympathetic, so he doesn't psyche. He forces himself on her, and the system congratulates him for reaching a level cap of plus 30. The system declares that since his aptitude has reached its maximum level, it has been converted to plus 50 HP, plus 10 defense, and plus 110 strength. He also acquired the elf skills Stealth and Night Vision. Meanwhile, in the elf tribe, one of the male elves declares to the Holy Mother that he can't continue anymore. She decides to let him go for the day, especially because the potion they have has already finished. She tells him it's so heartbreaking that the potion has finished. She wishes she had known because she would have captured more goblins the last time they went hunting. 3 elf men lie helpless on her bed, and they look like their life force has been taken out of them. One of the elf guards comes into the room, and the clan mother asks her if Kasana isn't back yet. He tells her that the princess left quite a while back and hasn't returned. He suggests they send out some men to go check on the princess, and mentions that it would be a good chance to kill some goblins and level up their warriors. The clan mother agrees, especially since more goblins mean more potions for her. While they're talking, they both hear a shrewd voice from outside that tells them that the princess won't be coming back tonight. The male guard quickly grabs his sword and swings into action, inquiring to know who made the statement. Our guy, who has acquired night vision, shoots several laced arrows from the dark at the male elves and the clan mother. The guard is easily taken out, and all his sword wielding is for nothing. The clan mother, on the other hand, easily catches the arrow and is surprised to see the Lin Tian along with an army of goblins. Our guy tells her that the princess is in his custody and will soon be having his little goblin babies. With a sly smile on his face, he tells her they're going to be family now, and she'll be his mother-in-law. The clan mother quickly grabs a nearby sword and demands to know what he has done to her beautiful daughter. Our guy tells her to take a guess, still having that smug look on his face. The clan mother rushes at him out of rage and threatens to kill him, but she simply trips beside him as he dodges her attack. He tells her that her tribe has been besieged and asks her to surrender obediently so he can consider treating her well. The clan mother, who is now on the ground, wonders why she's suddenly collapsed. The Lin Tian tells her that the arrow he shot at her is laced with bodily fluids from goblins, which suddenly paralyzes female elves who come in contact with it, even though she has caught the arrow. The clan mother curses in anger, realizing she's been bested. Lin tells her he overheard her and her subordinates talking about upgrading their warriors and stimulating potions, so he comes to the conclusion that it's true that the elves have been using goblins this way. He jokes that he's sure they never expected the goblins to come back to settle the score. As Lin Tian lifts her chin using his knife, the clan mother wonders if this is the new goblin leader the princess was talking about. While they're talking, they overhear the shouts of soldiers screaming, "Kill them," from outside, and several shouts for help. The clan mother wonders what all the raucous is about, so our guy takes her to the window to have a better look. By the window, he tells her it's time they talk about her cooperating if she doesn't want things to get worse. The clan mother watches the goblins stab the male elves with spears, and she watches them cry out to her to save them, as the female elves beg her not to let the goblins take them away. For a big-mouthed race, they sure know how to cry when in trouble. The clan mother angrily demands to know what he's done to her tribe, as if the view he just gave her wasn't enough. She's still in shock that the goblins can easily overpower a higher race like the elves. Lin Tian just tells her that the goblins are stronger than every elf in their race, so they don't have the power to resist. He explains that the elves slaughtered the goblins when they had the power, so it's just necessary that the goblins reciprocate the favor when they get stronger. He advises her to just face reality so he doesn't have to kill her, because to create stronger goblin warriors, he needs them alive. He also informs her that their fate after they help them achieve their cause of giving birth to stronger seeds depends on how well she behaves as a tribe's leader. The Holy Mother watches as the goblins stab the rest of the elf men and as they capture the other elf women. Many thoughts go through her mind since she has a hard decision to make. She eventually surrenders and tells him she'll do whatever he wants as long as he lets the little children live. She spells out that she's willing to bring her women to follow them and give birth to their children. Back in the enchanted forest, the princess screams out in pain when she realizes the Holy Mother has also been kidnapped. In tears, she asks the Holy Mother what they will do in the future. The Holy Mother apologizes for all that has happened, and mentions that she underestimated the goblins, and didn't expect them to attain strength greater than that of the elves. She tells the princess that all that's left of their clan are unarmed women and helpless children to preserve their bloodline. The clan mother confesses that their only way out now is to mate with the goblins so they keep them alive. The princess burst out in tears, realizing the gravity of the entire situation. One day, they're in their tribe, eating grapes and fighting over elfmen. The next, they're in a cage, depending on the goblins to survive. Lin Tian soon comes into their cage and tells them they should all stay inside and wait to give birth. He promises to arrange for their meals every day. He simply warns them not to try anything stupid, so they don't have to blame him for being ruthless and killing them all. The Holy Mother simply tells him she understands. A mother's gotta do what a mother's gotta do. She makes one request, though, and asks if she can take care of their children since they're hers. Nearby, Goblin Yue is seen taking care of the little elf children that the warriors captured, along with the little goblin children she had for Lin Tian. Our guy wonders if the reason she keeps making requests and doing things because of her children is because of the elf attribute, boundless maternal love. While he's thinking, Yue breaks his line of thought and tells him that she can't take care of all the kids by herself. So, Lin Tian decides to let the Holy Mother join Yue to take care of the rest of the children. Lin Tian decides that the little elf children are also important since they can add significant strength to their tribe when they grow up. I just hope that isn't a code word for the fact that they'll mate with them, because that's just sick. Our guy decides to take a look at his stats after mating with the Holy Mother. The system window pops up again, congratulating him for gaining a qualification boost, which will be converted to 200 HP, 30 strength, and 30 defense. That's a lot of improvement. Lin Tian wonders if his qualification has been unlocked to the highest level since all his acquired values just get converted to attributes these days. He smiles slyly as he realizes that all he has to do to continue to increase his strength is to continue to mate with stronger individuals and make them give birth to his seed. He realizes that his current strength is already enough to crush Loader, but he decides to hold out until the elves give birth, and then find an opportunity to deal with him. Half a month later, we hear the noise of little goblin babies crying as the elf women give birth. One of the elf women screams in horror as the goblin child she gave birth to crawls towards her. She screams out, questioning if this is truly her child, and begs that they take it away from her. She tells them it's terrifying, and she doesn't want to have it. Poor goblin baby, having abandonment issues at a tender age. That's gonna be a lot of money at goblin therapy. Hard life for a goblin, I guess. Nearby, Lin Tian asks Yue how many newborns they have so far, and she tells him they have about 40 or 30. Meanwhile, the princess screams out due to the pain of childbirth. She gushes out tears and seems to be in more pain than the rest of the elf women, which startles Lin Tian. The Holy Mother, who is breastfeeding her goblin baby, right next to her, tries to tell Kasana not to give up and asks her to keep pushing. Kasana, who is already tired of pushing, tells the Holy Mother she can no longer push. When Lin Tian and Yue come closer, the Holy Mother asks them to save her because it's her first time giving birth and she seems to be on the brink of death. Lin Tian simply walks past her and tells Yue to spread the princess's legs. The Holy Mother asks him if he knows how to do this, surprised at how fast he swung into action. He tells her he knows a bit and proceeds to help the princess. Princess Kasana tells him she doesn't want him to help her, but he tells her to shut up and comply because they're also his children. Moments later, Lin, who probably must have had some medical experience in his past life, successfully delivers the baby. Yue tells him he's amazing and commends him for saving her. She's a perfect example of a supporting wife. She commends him for delivering another woman whom he impregnated. Lin Tian tells her it's not a big deal like men always do, but I'm sure he secretly cherishes the commendation. The princess just lies there paralyzed, as it seems she is carrying up to 3 goblin babies. While they all talk, they hear a loud scream from one of the elf women, telling a goblin, who is trying to have his way with her, to let her go. The goblins ignore her scream, and they just try to have their way with her again, right after she had just given birth. The woman keeps fighting, unwilling to give in. The struggle is interrupted when one of the goblins sustains a knife cut, which happens to be from our guy. The goblins move away in fear, and our guy reminds them that he had told them to leave the elf women alone until they're fully rested and have recovered before they make them breed. With a menacing look on his face, he tells them that whoever disobeys the order again will face the consequence of death. So the goblins bow down in submission. Lin Tian tells them that from now on, each elf must be given an extra portion of fruit, and the lower goblins affirm his orders. The Holy Mother, who had been watching the whole thing, remarks to Lin Tian that he really is different from the ordinary goblins. He simply tells her that it's the proper thing to do, as long as they behave themselves. Later, Lin Tian decides to simulate the system to see how things will play out over time. The system window pops up and tells him that the current situation is that he has conquered the elf tribe and impregnated all the female elves. Because of this, the female elves will give birth to goblins with stronger attributes than the average goblin. Seeing that the tribe is about to expand, the computer mentions that Lin Tian will decide to seek revenge on Loader. He will infiltrate Brighttown alone and successfully locate the whereabouts of the Blade Hero group that Loader is leading. The system gives him 3 options with 3 different points. The first option is to take action himself and attempt to kill Loader and the other, which has a rating of plus 150 points. The second option is to lead the goblins to seek revenge and massacre Brighttown, which has a rating of plus 30. The third option is to wait and see because he feels the timing is not right and he'd like to observe a while longer. This has a rating of plus 10. Lin Tian goes through the options and wonders how they were able to find them so quickly. He realizes that his present strength is higher than that of Loader, but his companion's strengths should not be underestimated. Based on the fact that he's strong enough to easily kill Loader, he decides to select option 1, which is to attack Loader on his own. The system quickly simulates his option and tells him he finally attacks Loader when he is alone. But, at the point of almost killing Loader, his master, the Sword Saint of the human race, named the Sword Saintess, appears. The Sword Saintess saves Loader, and he dies tragically under her sword. Soon after this, Loader and his group return to the capital and are never seen again. The system presents its summary, that there will be no chance to escape if he goes through that route, and tells him to be careful. The system rewards him with 30 points for choosing that route and explains that the simulation will take 9 days in real life. Lin Tian is surprised to learn of the Sword Saintess's appearance. He wonders why such a powerful figure would appear in a place as small as Brighttown. He also realizes that he didn't expect Loader and his men to leave Brighttown. If they're going to be leaving soon, it's going to be difficult to find them again, so he decides he has to make his move quickly. Lin Tian looks over his shoulder and sees Yue giving the Holy Mother some apples. While watching, he gets a brilliant idea, so he decides to give it a try. He quickly walks to Goblin Yue and tells her that he needs to go into human territory for a few days. He tells her that the tribe's warriors listen to her the most after him, so he tells her to take over while he's away. Yue just exclaims, struck by the sudden news. The Holy Mother, on the other hand, asks him if he's crazy because it's certain that he'll be hunted and killed if he's ever discovered in human territory. He tells her that he knows, but he has a grudge against the human, so he has to seek revenge. A man's gotta do what a man's gotta do, even though it means his death. The Holy Mother tells him to wait and not be reckless. She tells him she can cast a stealth spell on him so he can't be detected by the humans, which makes Lin Tian slyly smile like he always does. It seems this was his plan all along, as he thinks to himself that this was exactly what he was waiting for her to say. He jokingly tells her that he didn't expect her to care about his safety, but she tells him that she's only afraid that the goblins will be more cruel to them if he dies. She casts the spell on him and tells him her children are all here, and their only chance of survival is if he returns alive. After the spell is cast, Lin Tian walks away towards the human kingdom. He thinks to himself that the Holy Mother really knows how to survive. Yue, who is now the leader of the tribe, simply screams out to him, telling him she'll take care of the tribe for him. Lin Tian waves at them one last time and tells them he'll see them later and he'll be back soon. Activities at Bright Town seem to be going on as usual, as the people go about their jolly business. They're soon interrupted by a couple of guards who go around for inspection. The guards look around meticulously for anything out of the ordinary. In a nearby dark alley, someone seems to watch them closely. That someone happens to be our MC, who looks angry by the number of patrol teams he keeps running into. He wonders why the town's security has suddenly become so strict. He wonders if this is because the Sword Saintess has already arrived, and hopes that is not the case. He is unsure of that because he's been gathering intel all day and no one has said anything about the Sword Saintess being around. Yet, the amount of security is alarming, which seems strange to him. As he walks through the town, he walks into an intersection and runs into a group that intrigues him. The group of people happen to be a team of adventurers that are ranking in Brighttown. The men in the group just chat with one another, totally oblivious to his presence. The teams present seem to be the Blade Hero team, which has the Platinum rank, the Boshi Hero team with the Silver rank, the Savior Hero team, also with a Silver rank in 3rd place, the Windstorm Hero team with a Bronze rank in 4th place, the Flame Hero team with a Bronze rank in 5th place, and lastly the Alchemy Hero team with a Bronze rank in 6th place. He wonders how the leader of the Blade Hero team, Loader, is ranking first, and wonders if he's improved again from the last time he saw him. Lin Tian quickly hurries onwards to find more clues, because as things are going, it seems his revenge plan might fail. At a nearby tavern in the city, the men enjoy themselves and drink to their hearts' close by content. MC, who is passing by, overhears a voice that seems quite familiar to him. With a sly grin, he counts himself lucky to have run into Loader, his enemy, at this place of all places. As he opens the door, he finds Loader there chugging a large cup of rum, in the midst of all his teammates from the Blade Hero team. At the table, one of the team members drunkenly tells the entire group how he was almost killed by a 4-armed ape a while ago, but thankfully, he was saved by Freya and Captain Loader just in the nick of time. Freya, who sits close by, simply passes along the compliment, declaring that Captain Loader is truly amazing because she couldn't have killed the 4-armed ape alone. I wonder how massive Loader's ego is that he needs everyone at the table to massage it. A member of the Boshi team, who sits nearby, makes fun of the Blade Hero team for bragging about something as small as a 4-armed ape. The guy who was sharing his testimony asks him what it is to him and tells him to get lost. The guy from the Boshi team starts to roll his sleeves, threatening his opponent not to think he won't whoop his ass because he's part of the Blade Hero team. The man who was sharing his testimony tells him to bring it on because he's not afraid. Loader just sits there, chugging another cup of rum as both men flaunt biceps at each other. Freya and the other team members, as well as the patrons of the tavern, just watch the men carefully to see what will happen. The tavern owner, who is indifferent about their shouting, simply informs them that the dragons on Dragon Island have entered their breeding season and have been kidnapping both livestock and their shepherds. He tells them not to cause trouble in the tavern, but to go slay the dragons if they feel they have some skills. MC, who sits nearby, watches the entire situation while he sips his rum and is startled to hear about dragons. The tavern owner continues his narration and says, if the dragons attack Brighttown and the capital doesn't send reinforcements in time, the adventurers in town won't be able to fend off the dragon horde's attack. He confesses that Brighttown is about to face darkness. The adventurers who are enjoying their rum all turn to listen to him, worried about the information he just passed. Captain Loader, who has been silent since, tells everyone that it's just a few dragons and there's nothing to be afraid of. With a grin on his face, he tells them there's no need to hide the information he's been keeping. So he informs them that the Sword Saintess is already on her way here, which intrigues the crowd. He explains that the Sword Saintess is his master, and once she arrives, they'll join forces to slay the dragons, and there'll be no need for the capital to send reinforcements. The men all light up in bewilderment, surprised that Loader was able to summon the legendary Sword Saintess. Some of them think it's not likely and he's just boasting, but another group believes that the arrival of the Sword Saintess is good news, because they don't have to be afraid of fighting against the dragons. One guy even says that if they succeed in their mission, Loader will become the hero of Brighttown. The captain, who now stands to make a public address, announces that he'll treat all of them to drinks as a way to celebrate the arrival of the Sword Saintess and the success of slaying the dragons in advance. He drops a small bag of coins to cover the bills to show he's serious, and the men start to furiously drink in excitement. Meanwhile, MC, who overhears the whole thing, stands up and quickly pays for his drink. He reasons to himself that he must seize this opportunity of having the dragons attack the town. Loader, who is facing his direction, is alerted by his quick exit. As Lin Tian reaches the door, Loader calls out to him and asks why he doesn't stay to have a few drinks with them. Lin Tian just looks over his shoulder and replies with a stern, no. He tells Loader that there will be more opportunities in the future, with that sly grin on his face and that sneaky look in his eyes. The captain, along with another member of his team, who seems offended by MC's reply, watches him leave. Captain thinks his reply is strange, but he lets him leave without a confrontation.